Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Omar, thank you for having me.
I am excited to have you on the show, brother. How you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. You know, you and I, every time we talk, we just keep going. So we might as well press record, right?
Pretty much. I mean, there's no reason to delay because, yeah, exactly. It's like we could go anywhere.
All right, you're driving, man.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the confidence. All right, let's do this. All right, so folks, today we have Mark J. Silverman joining us on the show. Mark is the host of the Mastering Midlife Podcast, a high-tech executive life coach, speaker, best-selling author. He believes that every human being has the ability to be successful, happy, and fulfilled. That becoming more of who you are instead of what you think you need to be will get you further in business, in your relationships, and in life. Sound about right, Mark?
That sounds about right.
All right. So Mark and I actually have a lot in common. We met through our friend Ellie Nash, and he put us together because we have very similar mindsets and ideas. We come from entirely different places, but where we're going is very similar. And it's this concept, it's this idea of success, happiness, fulfillment, and where that comes from. Right. So I definitely want to do a deep dive in all of that. But first, Mark, please tell us a little bit about what your normal daily routine looks like.
Wow. My normal daily routine starts at about 5 or 5:30, unless it starts at 3 o'clock when my dog kicks me off the bed because I don't have the heart to kick him back off the bed. But usually 5 or 5:30. And I have my coffee meditation. So the coffee's ready, and I bring it up to my cushion and my books and my journaling and my meditation cushion, and I start my day then. So it starts with the meditation and all the contemplative work that I aspire to, and then it goes to exercise, breakfast if I'm not on a keto fast, and then my first client whenever that is.
So the keto fasts, interesting. How does that work?
So that's the bulletproof coffee, where you have bulletproof coffee in the morning, and you don't eat until noon or 2 o'clock, and you only eat for 6 or 4 hours during a day.
Okay, and
this podcast is not going to be about that because I do it poorly, so nobody should follow my example.
I just want tips. Okay, because I love to do the bulletproof coffee, but I do bulletproof coffee with breakfast. So I'm like, okay, so maybe, and you don't need to. Once you've had the bulletproof coffee, you're good to go for a while.
You're good to go for the rest of the morning.
Okay, so nothing's perfect, but when you do it, when you successfully accomplish your mission, you have the bulletproof coffee in the morning, and then you don't eat until lunch.
That's when I do that. Yes. So okay. The more important thing for me is when I'm eating the way I know my body wants me to eat, whether it's fasting, whether it's just clean food, everything changes for me because I'm so affected by what I put in my body.
Okay. No, and I understand that. I get that. So what time do you stop eating at night for this, roughly?
I usually try and have my meal by 7:30 the latest. My partner likes to eat a little later, so I have a little bit of trouble regulating that since I get cooked for and fed really well. So I shut up and eat.
As you should. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. No, I would be doing this. I'm on the gravy train. I'm all about it. So bulletproof coffee and then lunchtime. What kind of results have you seen from that? Curious.
I see varied results because I'm all over the place. I would call myself an enlightened, spiritual human being and free of so many things. And you and I talk a lot about addiction. The food thing has really been the most difficult for me to deal with. So keeping my weight down, I'm going to be 57 years old, keeping my weight down, keeping the food as clean as possible is always a challenge for me. There is a pint of Ben & Jerry's fish food in my freezer because my partner bought it for my son last night, who didn't eat it, but it's been talking to me all day, and I deal with that all day. And that's the one thing that I really have not been able to shake is this. If I touch sugar, if I touch bread, foods that are not good for me, that make my hands so that they can't work, I'm off to the races. And I'm still vexed by that, why I have not been able to bring consciousness to that. And today I ate completely clean and perfectly fine. So today I would call myself conscious.
So what happens to your hands?
They stop working. I learned this years ago. I was about 10 years ago, I was bloated and my knees hurt and my hands hurt and my elbows hurt. And I was lethargic and foggy. And I went to a naturopath and he cut out all grains and all dairy and all sugar. And I dropped 14 pounds in like 3 weeks. And my hands started working again because I wasn't able to type. And the pain in my body went away. So
inflammation.
Those are my Those are my indicators.
So a heightened sense of inflammation.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Okay. I get all that. That was happening to me a lot, but also when I was in a tremendous amount of stress and my adrenal glands just got shot. And I puffed up like one of those puffer fishes, right? It was like ridiculous. All right, cool. Love the insight. Tell us a little bit about what your spiritual condition looks like. What's your conscious contact with your higher power look like?
A little different than most people would say, because I am my higher power. I am my conscious contact. I know the difference between Mark and who I really am. So it's hard to explain when I see through the facade of, who's walking around, who's talking, who's in relationship, and who I really am and what world I really live in.
Okay, that was a little tricky there, Mark. So
it's always tricky when we talk about anything spiritual and higher power, because it's not something that really can be talked about in a succinct way.
Is it some sort of, I guess you could say, intuition? Is it outer consciousness? Is it?
So we're really going to go here. Okay, so
I'm just curious.
Here's what I know. Sometime I think about a year ago, I was sitting on my cushion doing some meditation, and I realized that Mark didn't exist. I realized that I had spent my whole entire life building, defending, creating this entity called Mark, and everything about him was and is an amalgamation of my thoughts, my beliefs, my conditioning, my upbringing, my physiology, whatever ancestral memories there are, and that I am none of those. And it all just faded away. It all just melted away. And I had a few days of just seeing beyond. Now it's back, and I'm Mark again, and I'm a father, and I'm a partner, and I'm an executive coach, and I'm all those things. But I also know that those are just the things that are made up for this plane.
Well, I mean, I had this interview with Drew Canole. Drew Canole is the founder of Fit for Life TV.
I am completely full of all his foods.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, it would make sense that you would. Okay. So you know all about Organifi. Anyway, he talks about this being the meat suit.
Yes.
Right. And so this is just the vessel, the vehicle, right? It's not spiritually who we are, or whatever that being is inside of us is not this meat suit. And it's not what happened to us, and it's not. I think to a certain degree, it's got to be all of it. It's got to be all of it. It's all is one. I mean, all these experiences that we have make us up into who we are, right? So there's a part of our past experiences that allow us to help others, to grow, to experience life on a very different level. So I think that, and that's why I asked the question, because there is a resistance to the idea of spirituality for many of us, just the way it was presented as children.
Sure.
So it's the dogma behind it. It's the structure behind it. It's the guilt behind it. It's the control behind it, as opposed to something that is inherent for all of us, is I guess, a conscious contact of some sort.
Sure.
And for you, that's the conscious contact with you, your spirit realm.
Yes,
I guess.
I'll take it a step further, to the New Age movement, the spirituality that is inherent in my profession and in the people that I hang with. Part of the thing that melted away from me and was really a tough one is the identity of being this loving guy, of being this altruistic guy, of being a heart guy. I had a lot of pride in that, in being seen that way, and to let go of that even that is an illusion that I've made up for myself, a persona that is better than the drug addict and the alcoholic and the sex addict who preceded it, right? So letting go of all of those things has really been key. Now let's take it even a step further. I also know that I'm still here. I'm on this earth, whatever this earth is. I'm in this dream. I am playing this game. So I play this game as hard and as fun and as passionately as I possibly can, because it's the reality that I live in, right? So that's the dichotomy of the conversation.
Well, I think that's the most important element to kind of bring to surface here, which is the idea that regardless of what I believe, right, I'm still here in this meat suit with limitations. So
food, I can't, there you go. As spiritually, crazily enlightened as I think I might be, I still can't handle the fish food in the freezer, right? And I find the irony and the hystericalness of the whole thing.
Love it. This makes you human, Mark.
Right?
The Ben and Jerry's makes you human. It could be the universe's way of grounding you.
But here's the difference. So, I still have financial challenges. I still have, I have weight challenges. We were talking about ADD before here, and, so I've labeled myself ADD because I have trouble staying on task. And what the difference now is that I don't confuse the ADD. I don't confuse my obsession with the fish food ice cream with me. So I'm free. I've stopped. The shame is melted off, and I don't hate myself for not being able to not eat it's what Mark's an addict. Mark is a pretty much a bit of a mess, right? So I can really laugh at that and love him in that way, which I've never been able to do before. And that's the biggest gift I have gotten out of this whole quote unquote spirituality thing, is the freedom from hating myself. Brilliant
answer. Love it. I'm glad we went there. I'm glad it wasn't as painful as either one of us thought it was going to be. So let's move into the addiction. So one of the things, and I changed my format a while back to encompass all addictions. Like, we're addicted to something. Everybody is. Food, sugar, sex, money, success, our identity, and drugs and alcohol. So what was it that drugs and alcohol ultimately represented in your life, and how did they control your life? How do they control your life? And what were the consequences that you faced?
Before they stopped being fun?
Correct.
Because, I got sober I was homeless and drove into Washington, D.C. at 27 years old, 130 pounds at 27 years old, living in my truck. So basically it took everything from me. My brother helped me get sober. So I went to AA and NA and found a whole new group of friends. And that's when, my real life started.
So what was your drug of choice?
Alcohol is totally my drug of choice. Although
Okay.
I would say fish food is a close second.
But
no, cocaine was probably my favorite thing ever, but that took me down really fast, and I was able to quit cocaine and go back to alcohol, which is absolutely was my favorite. It's been 30 years this September.
So tell us a little bit about what that rock bottom moment was for you? What'd that look like?
It looked like, let's see, my mother told me I was supposed to be the first Jewish president, right? I was all potential. Everybody loved me and all that. And I ended up living in my truck and having, no education, the only thing I could do was bartend or wait tables, but I couldn't even really do those things until I got sobered up, and I was deeply in debt. And, it's funny because when I went to my first AA meeting, and they gave me a coin, and on the back it said, "To thine own self be true." I'm getting choked up. That's weird. I had no idea what that meant. Like, I just looked at it. I said, "To thine own self, what is, I don't know who I am. I don't know what a self is." And that's was the start of finding out.
The first Jewish president?
Yeah. She had high hopes.
Yeah, a lot of expectations.
Yes.
So, but now you say that, like when we talk about what was that rock bottom moment for you, and you started with that story. So what does that story mean to you?
It means that of all the grandiose things I thought about myself and all the way people talked about me constantly, none of it came to fruition. It all just came crashing down to me and a little pickup truck that I lived in, and I had nothing left, and I had nothing to offer, and it was humbling because there was just nothing left.
Yeah, but I'm curious about this whole thing about being the Jewish president. So all this pressure put on you as a child, heavy pressure.
There was no pressure. Nobody ever pressured me to do anything. They just talked a big game. So I did not get pressured for school. I was basically a latchkey kid, and nobody really paid much attention. They just talked about me as if I was something special.
So what were you soothing yourself about?
I don't know. I think I had, and I will say up until this past year, had a self-destructive vein in me. It's funny because I've always beat myself up for I made a lot of money as a sales guy in the tech industry, but I always beat myself up because it was always so much trouble for me to get up and do things and stay on task and to get married, to have kids, and everything just seemed so much work for me to not destroy myself, even though I stayed sober. And I beat myself up for years and years and years and years for everything being so difficult. And then sometime, it was actually before my experience that we were talking about earlier, I was doing some morning pages journaling, and I know it wasn't for me because I wouldn't have never had this thought. I was writing about, I start my morning pages with, "I'm such a shit. I'm such a piece of garbage. I'm, just get that crap out." Right. And it ended up with, no, God talking to me and saying, "I chose you because of those things, not in spite of those things. And by the way, how badass are you that you got sober, that you made $1 million, that you actually got married and had children, that you actually, when you got sick and were suicidal, what came out the other side was love and opening and relationship and a whole new career where, I dedicated my life to helping other people," right? Like, in spite of all these things, this is where I ended up. So that was an interesting turnaround for me to see that I have no business being successful. I have no business being sober. I have no business being in a loving relationship or a father for that matter. Because I was a young gay guy, drug addict, alcoholic, sex addict, with no prospects of ever living past the age of 20. Right. So this is a miracle to be here at almost 57 years old in this state.
So now we're getting somewhere. So
there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go. So how old were you the first time you drank?
First time I drank, 12, 11.
Okay. Um, and when did you know you were gay?
Probably about 12 or 13. And I didn't know if it was gay or not. I was molested as a kid. And so that's, I liked girls quite a bit, but that wasn't in the cards. Quite a few traumatic things happened, junior high school. And then by the time I was a senior in high school, I was full on in my sex addiction.
Okay. And
back then you could get in bars at 18, at 17. That was easy.
Okay. All right. So was there, to your recollection, was there any kind of internal conflict going on inside you between social expectations, family expectations, and your own
None.
evolution?
I left. I went and worked in gay bars, and nobody. My family loved me as best they could, but no, it was drinking, drugging, sex, round the clock, all day, every day.
So so it was kind of a combination of, when we talk about addiction, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Absolutely. I had a really good time for a while. I highly recommend 5 minutes of that. And if I could partake with 5 minutes of it now, that'd be great.
If any of us could do 5 minutes,
right?
The minute we got it, we'd be like, how can I take this to 15? And so on and so on and so on, right? Because my first thought was 5 minutes. Oh, wow, that'd be great escape. Could we extend it to 15? Like,
right?
what would it take? What would it take to push that to 15? 15 seems like the right amount for the break. Yeah. So then, I'm curious, so tell me a little bit about your family. How were they as far as supporting you, either getting through your addiction with drugs and alcohol, or, as coming out as gay? Like, what was that like for them? What was that like for them, and how did they support you or not support you?
They were all loving about it. They were all pretty cool about it. But again, they're all wrapped up in their own lives and their own, just trying to deal. We all had our addictions and our things to deal with, but they've always been really cool about it. And then when I went through kind of change therapy, and I wound up getting married, and people were like, well, how'd that happen? What is Mark doing with a woman? And all that, then they were, they were loving and awesome about that. And, and then, years later, when I was having trouble in my marriage, and I decided, this just isn't worth it, and I, decided I was going to go back this direction, they were like, they followed me this way. So I've been really lucky. And what's really cool is I live in just outside of Washington, D.C., in what looks like a small town, where my kids grew up, and my ex-wife lives here, and I live around the corner from my ex-wife. And, there is no perceptible gossip ever. I live with my partner around the corner from my ex-wife, and where my kids used to live. My kids are grown up, but, I go to the same parties and all this stuff, and I'm just loved and accepted in this community. My kids have never gotten any crap for the way I live my life. And I feel really blessed about that.
No, it sounds like, I don't know if you can tell, I'm digging for the trauma, and, I can't seem to find it.
Which trauma? There's plenty of trauma. Which trauma would you like?
Give me some childhood trauma.
Childhood trauma. I was molested over and over again as a kid. And I spent my whole life trying to deal with that, right? Trying to fix that through sex addiction. The whole sex addiction was trying to fix what I thought happened to me, the way my perception of being molested, right? Not exactly what happened to me, but what I thought happened to me. And by turning the tables and choosing that, I felt like I was getting my power back. And even when it was in remission and I wasn't acting on it, and I was sober and I was married with kids and all that, it still lurked in the background. I don't know how much it had to do with destroying my marriage. I have no idea what I do know now is that it has informed my sex life up until very recently, where I've done a lot of work around it, my partner has, and I'm intimate for the first time in my life. Like now I find intimacy. and love and in something very different and a little disorienting, to tell you the truth, at 57 years old. So yeah, what did that trauma do to me? It screwed up sex and intimacy for me for 40, 50 years. Right.
Is that where this self-sabotage could possibly come into play? This maybe feeling of not deserving, like what was you're a coach, so and you've done a lot of work on this. So this is an area that is important to all of us. I mean, I'm going to speak for myself, but intimacy and my relationship with my wife, so important. And yeah, I didn't meet my wife, the one I currently am married to, till I was 42 years old. So I had all kinds of.
To throw in our current significant other.
Thank you for pulling that. Thank you for pulling my covers. My wife, right? I met her when I was 42 years old. It took me that long of, personal development and learning, how to be a partner, how to be a loving, intimate, caring, someone who listens, someone who compromises, someone who is not jaded and angry and bitter and, constantly worried about losing the upper hand. And, I did not have that loving, supportive, childhood growing up. My dad was Latino, very machista, right? He ran the house like a fucking warden. You know what I mean? And so for me growing up, I always thought that someday I was just going to be, telling people how it was, setting the order in the house, right? Kids do what I say. Mom says what I say. My wife says what, it's like, that I run the house. So I wasn't, we all come from different backgrounds, but I had to break all that. You know what I mean? So, and I didn't go through any of that. I wasn't molested and I wasn't beaten. Like dad was not physically violent. My dad was just a wordsmith. My dad could just cut people he was a wordsmith. He was just tactical. It's the best way to put it. But so there was a lot of, from what I'm getting from your story too, it's like, so here's this big traumatic thing that happened to me in my life. And it's taken me decades, right, to finally get to a place.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was pretty sure I was going to die. I had made a pact about 10 years ago with God, the universe, with whatever, that I will stay alive, because I was so depressed 10 years ago that I'll stay alive until my youngest son, Jake, graduates high school. And just before he graduated high school, I wound up in the hospital for 9 days. My appendix had burst, and I probably could have or should have died. And I didn't realize until after that I had made that pact, and I had made it in, solid. So then when Jake graduated high school, I was disoriented for a couple of months, realizing, oh, I didn't really expect to be here. And now what do I do? And it was a couple of months of disorientation until freedom showed up, which was, oh, this is all fucking gravy. I get to play, which is why you're having a little trouble. I have no problems talking about my trauma and being gritty about that. But what has happened since I realized that I actually should have died is I just let go of so much that it's joyful and it's fun and it's playful. So I forget that we're talking about my addictions.
No,
that I deal with all the time.
I mean, I have structured questions, but like I told you before, we're going to go off we'll wherever this interview takes us, it takes us. And, sometimes I just kind of like, there's this little inner dialogue that starts with me and goes, ask this question. Right. So it just comes. Right. So, I'd like to know more about that, because I was in Miami recently. I did this speech on the healing power of letting go, right? And so here's what you're talking about, exactly that, the healing power of letting go. So there was this part of you that was either planning to kill yourself, or
no, I just thought I would die. I thought I was going to get sick and die. And I ended up in the hospital, but it presented as an appendix, but I knew what it was.
Manifested it.
It just manifested itself. I believe my thoughts, my beliefs, all that stuff manifest in this world. And that's what was manifesting. You know, I was busy destroying my finances. I was busy destroying my relationship, and I was busy
Exactly.
destroying myself. Right. And I didn't even know it because it looked really good. My coaching practice is going great. My relationship looks great and all this stuff. But what I was really doing, underneath the covers was planning my exit.
And what did you discover?
I discovered that I am more badass than any of that dark energy, and that I am here. I am here to play. And I am here to play, in ways that I don't even understand. I've been in a creative frenzy since the end of the summer last year. After that disoriented period, I've been in a creative renaissance that never even dreamed of. And I'm still riding it. We were talking earlier how I didn't brush my teeth until right before this podcast, and it's 4:00 in the afternoon, and because I was at my desk creating, writing, editing an online course that I made, and I'm having a blast, just seeing what can I get out of this body, this meat bag, as Drew calls it, before it's time to go, right?
Right. Exactly. But what did you let go of? Do you know do you recognize?
I know exactly what I let go of. I let go of Mark. I let go completely of Mark.
Okay.
I decided that Mark was no longer relevant to any of this. How Mark looks, what Mark's weight is, what Mark's income is, what people think of Mark. Is Mark loving? Is Mark wise? Is Mark, like insightful? I don't give a shit anymore. I just don't give a shit.
So I'm no longer concerned with what other people with what other people think, and I'm also not concerned with what I think.
Right. Exactly. I just don't. I've gotten to the point where I so don't give a shit about anything that my heart is open and that I get to care and love and care about these things. It's really it's hard to explain. But, I no longer care about what's happening with our government. I no longer care about what's happening with the environment, right? And on the flip side of that, I do care. I'm in tune. I feel it's a dichotomy that's hard to put into words.
No,
I no longer carry the heaviness of it all.
Right.
I'm no longer judge, jury, and I don't know what's right, wrong, good, bad. I've, what the Buddhists call, about, there's, everything is inherently neutral. I get it. And there's things I decide to care about, right? I decide to care about the dolphins being clubbed in Japan. Like, I decide to care about these things because that's what's fun. I decide to care about my children, right? I decide to parent hard, right? And I know it doesn't really fucking matter because they're meat bags too. I mean, it sounds callous, but my kids are meat bags too.
We are all in this meat suit.
Right.
We're all in this meat suit, doing the best we can, right? And the whole idea is to experience. It's a journey. We're here to experience it. So the more things that get put in our way, any obstacle, any challenge, anything beautiful, any opportunity for growth and contribution and love and pain and suffering, and all of it is part of the experience.
It's so funny. I was talking to a psychic, Shoshana French. She's amazing. We were talking, and I said, Shoshana, I just need to know my purpose. I need to know my mission. If I knew my purpose and mission, then everything would be okay. She goes, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't have a purpose or mission. God doesn't give a shit what you do. I was like, huh? She goes, he doesn't care. What do you want to do? I was like, that was one of the first times I was like, oh, this, there isn't this heavy, like, once I find out why I was born, you know why I was born? Because I was born. That's it. Everything else is, what do I want to do? And that's when it becomes really light.
I like this. Right. And this is what's so fun about this space, the coaching space, the personal development space. the woo-woo space, the wellness space, whatever you want to call it, there are no fucking rules, man. Like there are none. I can agree and disagree with you, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's what's important to me, and what's important to me here, what's important to you over there. And it's just a beautiful exchange of ideas without having to convince somebody else, wait a minute. Are you sure about that? It doesn't matter. Of course I'm sure about that. It's what I believe. It's true if I believe it is. So I'm loving this conversation, Mark. I love, how we're just, like all over the place, but at the same time, it truly makes sense. And it also kind of takes a lot of pressure off, man. What is my purpose? What is my mission? What am I supposed to be here? It's like, you're supposed to be happy and enjoying and like, what do you want to do? What inspires you?
No. The good thing about this conversation is there's work to be done in order to find what I truly want to do. Because again, I think I have an advantage being an addict and an alcoholic and a drug addict. I get that this, I remember my first AA meeting. I walked in and this woman raises her hand and she goes, "I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic and I'm worthless. And I just, I'm just a piece of shit and I just have to give up to a higher power and all that." I'm like, what is this? I'm not staying here. And now I get it. Like, all I want to do is eat sugar, have sex, watch Netflix. Like, I finally get that this, like, I want to spend money. I finally get that this thing isn't looking out for my best interest. So I look elsewhere, right? So I find deeper, what do I want? And what I really want is love, connection, legacy, right? Those deeper things. In fact, I write my desires. It's an exercise that I give my clients, is to write your desires. And then what's underneath that? And then what's underneath that? So every morning I write my desires. And my desires went from like a Chevy Blazer, with the new Chevy Blazer, which is really hot because my lease is up on my Audi. See, I'm still materialistic. But I look under and every morning I find 5, 6, or 7 desires. And now they're all about, I just want to be connected to the infinite. I just want to see through the veil. I want my experience to be abiding rather than, flashing in and out. I want love and sex and fun in my relationship since I'm here and in one, right? And my wants have changed so that I can trust them, right? So yes, I follow my desires. Yes, what do I want? But now I can trust them that they're not going to lead me, this meatbag, to destruction. And by the way, if they lead this meatbag to destruction, that doesn't matter either. It just, I just don't believe that God, the universe, really gives a shit, because we're like flashes. We're here, we're gone. We're here, we're gone. None of this is permanent. For me, I want to have as much impact and as much fun, and I want whenever this wave goes back into the ocean, if I get to brag, I want to say, hey, by the way, I beat the fucking addiction and I actually did some good.
Yeah. So inadvertently, there is a higher purpose, Mark.
I know.
Fuck. Only
because it's more fun. It's more fun for me to think that way. You're not going to trap me into that. It's more fun for me to think that there's something, there's something about this love thing.
Every time
I have to tell you, when I feel love,
I
feel joyous. When I feel love, not when I feel loved, when I feel love. And I'm looking for that. I want to walk around feeling love all the time. Why? Selfishly, I feel like $1 million when I love you. I don't really give a shit about you. I just want to feel like $1 million. So I'm going to love the shit out of you.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, everything that we seek, ultimately, all roads lead to love and connection.
I believe that. I've followed every thread with every client, with every person, and it all leads to love, connection, worthiness, peace,
legacy,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Every single thread.
Yeah. We could sit here all day and jerk each other off about what the fuck we feel is my path, my thoughts, my beliefs, what I coach, how I coach, what I got down to. All this work you did at the end of the day was like, I recognize in myself that what matters the most to me is love and connection. My family is the most important thing in my life. Having breakfast yesterday with my 16-year-old daughter, just the two of us, and having a conversation that was like so spontaneous and so out of the blue, but what brought us together on a 10x level, right? Love and connection. And that was it.
Beautiful.
You know, that's what, you know, when I think about at the end of the day, right? All this stuff that I do, right? One of my goals is always, you know, to provide a luxurious lifestyle for my family, whatever that means. That's why I said luxurious, whatever that means, because everyone has a different idea of what luxurious means. But we have a currently
Four Seasons Maui. Thank you. I have my definition since we're going to define things. Four Seasons Maui, definition of luxury.
I'm writing that down. All right. Four Seasons Costa Rica and Guanacaste is pretty badass. Just saying, in case you wanted to shift it up.
Actually, the Four Seasons in Philadelphia, if you don't go outside, is paradise.
Wow.
Four Seasons anywhere is paradise.
That's what I was about to say. If you don't leave, you know, you're good. All right. So listen, I really appreciate where this is going, Mark. All right. And, you know, actually, I even like you kind of fighting me a little bit. It's been fun.
I've been waiting for you to kick me off the podcast.
No, I can't wait till I'm on yours.
That'll be next week.
I want to let him have it. So here's what I want to know. This is more on the coaching side, right? Like when I'm coaching people, there's the limiting beliefs. Okay. So I can't do this because I'll be happy once I do this, once I get here. There are these learned patterns of thinking, programming that we get, right? So what is it? What are your, what were the stories that you used to tell yourself, your biggest limiting beliefs? And what is it that you believe now?
So my biggest limiting belief now, which it still rears its head, is the only way I'm going to get people to care for me is if I stay small and cute and lovable.
Ooh, wow.
And the other one that goes with that is if I actually focus and work on, if I focus on my work, and the things that I need to do, I'm going to get old and sick and die.
Wow. Okay. All right. And
so in other words, if I stay Peter Pan, if I stay young and I don't get attached to anything and I just kind of flit around, then I get to stay young and cute, and which means I get to be loved and cared for.
Well, not for nothing, but you're 57 years old, and I would have never guessed you were 57 years old. You know, you are pretty cute.
Thank you.
You know, so you got the little sweater going on over there. So I'm looking across.
It's actually chilly. It's actually chilly up
No,
here.
but I mean, it's like, I'm like 57 years old, really? Right? And then you say this, if I stay small, cute, and lovable, I'm like, I see it. So you have a strong power to manifest, Mr. Peter Pan.
So the piece with that is what I realized. You know, I was the baby of the family, molested. You know, and in order to get molested and get attention from that person, I needed to surrender and I needed to be passive, right? So in order to in my family of origin, in order not to get in the way of things, I needed to stay cute and lovable and all that stuff. What happened is once I got sober, once I started raising a family of my own, I became the hyper responsible person in my family. So when my parents died, I took care of my parents. I paid for things for them. Like I started giving money. I started paying people's mortgages. I did all kinds of stuff because I was successful, and I became the hyper responsible person. And in my perception was people took from me when I was big. People needed and wanted from me when I was big, and nobody realized, because inside I was small and everything was hard, you know, being a high-tech sales guy, but I'm a sensitive guy, but you know, I'm in the shark infested waters of multi-million-dollar sales. For me, the oh my God, I have to get small. So I had to I crashed and burned every once in a while. So people would care about me. They would take care of me. They would be kind to me. And it was, it's only the last decade, the last probably the last 5-6 years since my last crash, when my marriage broke up, that I start to see that. And I start to see that limiting belief that, oh, I need to crash and burn in order to get people to care about me, is now I know how to ask people to care about me. I know how to ask my partner, look, I need to put my head in your lap. I need to just be small and weak. It's, it's unsustainable for me. Like, to ask for help, to tell my ex-wife, I gave my ex-wife quite a bit of money every month. I overcompensated because I'm over responsible, right? And basically I drained myself in order to take care of my family, because I promised I would take care of my family. And now I can't give her that, that money that we agreed upon. And to say to her, look, I need help now. My business is robust, but, I spent a number of years building it and still paying everybody's bills. And now I need a break. That was death to me. Again, to Mark's ego, to how Mark's is seen in the world, and to actually say to her, look, I can't do this. And then what hurt even more, it was like a knife through my heart when she said, I trust you. You've been generous to me. I'm good. I could cry now. She said, you've been wonderful to me. Thank you. Whatever you need. Like, to let her be good, I wasn't the martyr, was actually painful to allow someone to care for me like that. And so now to have it as I'm not bad, I'm not small, I'm not crash and burn, I just need help like any other human being, is really it's growth for me. That's moving through that limiting belief.
Wow. That was beautiful, man.
Did you
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So what is it that you believe today?
Oh, yeah. We're going back to the beginning of this conversation. What I believe today is that nothing fucking matters. That every day, every moment, I'm creating, and I create relationship. I create business. I create legacy. I just create. What do I want to? I ask myself in every moment, what is it that I want to create in this podcast? What do I want to create? I want to create value for anybody who's listening to me. Right. And that's what I do all day, every day. What do I want to create now? Where, in this situation, do I want to create strife? Sometimes I want to create strife, right? Like, I had a little fight with my son. He wanted to go join the IDF. He just got back from Israel, and now he's all romanticizing the IDF. He wanted to go join the IDF. So spiritual Mark didn't show up. Dad Mark showed up. I burst into tears and I said, no fucking way. You're not going to fight somebody else's war. By the way, and I just laid into him because I got scared. Right. But what I realized, now, it is, I lost my train of thought once I started thinking about my son. Like that gets me.
Dude, I love you talking about your family. It's like a different Mark.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like I got a little thing going on over here, man, because I'm a dad too, man. Like when I got to put my dad pants on, sometimes I have a hard time doing that because I just feel too much.
Yeah, no, my son, my sons are the way to this meatbag's heart. Yes.
Yeah, I get this. Do you feel like when it comes to this whole idea of now asking for help, like talking to your ex-wife and becoming vulnerable, and talking to your partner and being vulnerable and asking for help, and taking that role, do you feel deserving of that now?
Deserving. That word, I don't know. That word doesn't compute, but do I feel that it worthy in relationship? I don't know what the word to use is, but yes, I most of the time it still goes down rough. It's not. I am more comfortable in the given role, right?
Comfortable.
I'm more comfortable.
More comfortable.
It's uncomfortable for me to receive still.
So like, let's just take this as if we're talking about if we've each have a client, right? So, and they're going through this phase in their life, right? So it's sometimes I can't go from, feeling depressed or miserable or lethargic, whatever, to feeling, ecstatic and, happy and joyous. So how do we meet in the middle somewhere? What's the word that's going to make you feel okay with moving towards versus away from, in this, and when we're talking about, and however you want to paint it, I'm afraid to use a word, right? But if we were talking about feeling deserving, well, I don't know if I like that word. What word would you like?
Yeah. So like, it's not that I like the word. I don't know if that word computed for me.
Okay.
It's again, I'm not comfortable. The word is I'm not comfortable. It's almost painful to allow to be cared for. I want it. I crave it. I'm kind of like one of those cats who like pet me, don't pet me, pet me. But I'm getting better at it.
Okay. I love it.
Much better at it.
All right. Good man. Good man. All right. So here's one of my favorites from Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins talks about, if you want to take the island, you have to burn the boats. Have you ever heard that one?
Sure.
Okay. So there's that moment in our lives where we have to draw that, where we do, or some of us do, draw that line in the sand where we say, not one more day, not one more hour, not one more minute. I'm not going to tolerate this in my life anymore. What was that moment for you?
Oh, well, what was that? That moment for me was when, wow, I've had it several times. The first time was when I went to Hawaii with Alan Cohen for my first coach training. And I fell in love with myself and I found my heart for the first time. And I remember I didn't want to leave the island because I didn't want to go back to the real world. I was still a high-tech sales guy, and I didn't want to go back to hating myself. I never wanted to lose my heart. So before I left Hawaii, I said, I will never, ever, ever lose my heart again, because I found it for the first time in, whenever. The next time that happened was when it was actually last year when Mark faded away, and I said, I will never, ever, ever believe this again and hate myself. I will never fall into that trap of thinking that Mark is who I am ever again. And the interesting thing was, in my mastermind last Friday, they were pushing me to do, some sales stuff for my business that I just didn't feel like doing. And also with my workouts. So my workouts and my sales seemed to be linked. And I wasn't sure that they wanted me to commit to something. And I said, I'm not going to commit because I don't know that I'm going to do it. And I don't want to commit to something that I'm really not, that's not a line in the sand. They were trying to get me to see that you could commit and fail and then recommit. And I remember yelling at them and saying, I am not going to do something that's going to make me hate myself again. I am never, ever, ever going to hate myself again. That was that was the line in the sand. I never, ever, ever want to be in prison ever again. Which, by the way, once I say that, that's a prison. If I never, ever want to be in prison again, I just put myself in prison. It took me a couple of days to wake up to that one. Like, oh shit, that's the prison. Is I need to be willing to go back to prison and know that that doesn't mean anything. And so there was another level of freedom there.
Wow, dude.
So every line in the sand is another prison. And and no fucking way am I going to get trapped with that one.
I got to write that one down. Every line in the sand is another prison. Ooh, I like that. Listeners, unpack that one. All right. So tell us about, because this is kind of similar, but I don't know, you tell me if it is or it isn't. Tell us about an aha moment in your life when you realized that you were turning it all around.
Oh, that's great. So when I was depressed, when my marriage broke up and I was really sick and I was depressed, and I thought I was going to die, and I had it was really bad. I couldn't sell anything, and things were just going to shit. And I was walking around my apartment every night. In fact, I used to go out into my town, and I'd walk at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was having panic attacks, and I couldn't deal. I made the decision that I'm going to die. If I'm going to die, a lot of theme here with this meatbag, is I'm going to leave a legacy. So I need to leave money for my ex-wife and kids. So I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to run the Marine Corps Marathon. I'm going to give $60,000 to charity to make up for what a shit I am. So I wound up doing all of those things. And the aha moment was after I ran the Marine Corps Marathon, after I made the $1 million, after I gave all that money to charity, I was the healthiest I had ever been. I was successful again, right? And I didn't die, and that was an aha moment. Like, huh? Now what? So I bought a Lexus convertible.
Rebirth.
A Sonic blue Lexus convertible.
Dude,
and the aha moment was like, I could allow myself to have those. Because up until that point, when I lived in my apartment, I had all our old silverware. I had $7 IKEA tables, all that stuff. So when my ex-wife was like, go buy yourself that car. You deserve it. You work your ass off. Right? When I bought that car, it was like, huh, I get to be on the list too.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's pretty powerful. I get to be on the list too. Man, I can't tell you how many times I have asked that question. When do you get to be on the list?
Right. Alan Cohen actually in his book Relax into Wealth, he said, what if you treated yourself the way you treat everybody that you love? And I was like, huh? What are you saying? What are those words on the page?
Yep.
And then it occurred to me, like, treat myself like everybody I love. I'm not even on the list, right? I don't count. And that was another aha moment. That's why I went to Hawaii to meet with him, because it was the turning point.
Wow. Incredible. All right. So Mark, incredible interview, man. Like we did dip and dive. So after this interview, if my listeners want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to find you?
MarkJSilverman.com. Mark the letter J, Silverman.com. Everything is there. My beautiful new website.
It is nice. It's beautiful.
That I'm really actually so proud of. Finally, after all these years, being able to express what it is I'm doing. The Mastering Midlife Podcast. We are at episode 56 now. And those are the places where you can find me.
Yeah, and I will be on Mark's podcast very soon as well. So look out for that one. I'll let you guys know. So Mark, any favorite books you would recommend to our listeners?
It all depends on where you are in life. Right now, I'm reading The Way of Mastery by Shanti Christo. And it's another mind-blowing foray into non-duality. This isn't real, we're all connected kind of stuff.
Beautiful. What about your book?
Excuse me?
What about your book?
My book, Only Tens: How to Use Distraction to Get the Right Things Done. It's a really easy read. For me, it's kind of a time mastery book, but it's also for me. It was my journey into actually learning to set boundaries, to have difficult conversations, to actually ask for what I want, to stand up and count, so that I could focus on the things that I wanted. So much of my ADD is about people pleasing and putting everybody else's agendas first. So I built these workshops around this. Is, everybody says you should set a boundary, but how do you actually do that? You should have these tough conversations. How do you actually do that? right? So that's what, in the book, it's from the point of view of, I wrote it for myself, right? It sold 55,000 copies. I wrote it just for myself. I thought I would buy it and maybe some friends. And it was basically for me to learn how to pay attention to what's important to me and actually go do those things.
Give me the name again.
Only Tens. How to use distraction to get the right things done. A homage to my lovely label of ADD.
I love it, man. I love it. Dude. All right.
The new book will be Mastering Midlife, How to Thrive When the World Asks the Most of You.
That's coming?
That's coming.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. What are your 3 most powerful I am statements? Motherfucker.